And welcome to tonight's edition of the One Hood Power Hour. I am your co-host, Kahari Mosley, here with my illustrious co-host and co-pilot on this One Hood Power journey, Miracle Jones. Welcome.
Welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Yeah, it's a holiday week. We have a short week coming up, but there's still always stuff going on in the world of politics. You talk a little bit about the guests we have on tonight, and then we'll do some quick takes because there's a lot going on locally in the state of Pennsylvania in politics. But I did want to share our fantastic panel that we have this evening.
Yes, tonight we have great panelists talking about various issues around criminal justice. Our first panelist, Dr. Sarah Leonardi, is going to be talking to us about a new tool to understand local policing. There's different police departments and police precincts. And so what does that mean for you as a resident of Allegheny County? Then we have two guests from Jailbreak and Bucket Bail Fund who are going to talk to us about a new bill, HB 2046, that's going to actually change the way bail funds and community bail organizations are able to operate within Pennsylvania. And they're going to talk about why it's so important that this bill actually does not pass and how you can get involved to ensure that community bail funds and organizations are still able to operate come next year. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. But like you said, Kahari, there has been a lot of stuff happening. Even though it is the holiday weekend, the fall holiday break is coming up, there's still so much going on in the world of politics.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before we get into that wonderful panel, we are going to talk a little bit about what's going on. First and foremost, Republican Senate frontrunner for the U.S. Senate seat, Sean Parnell, has suspended his campaign. Apparently, there was a decision made and a very, what has become a sensational trial around custody in family court in his local county. And it's been all over the news, and a lot really disturbing allegations have come out. And one of the results is he lost custody of his children and his wife. From what I understand in the early reports, is that guy has gotten at least, if not full custody, the majority custody, or however that works. I am not a family law expert, but he did not get the result that he wanted out of the custody trial and has pulled out of the race, at least for now.
And it's a very, we'll give a general trigger warning. It's a very deep, dark discussion that's been happening right now within the world of politics. And we always have to remember, when people run for office, it's not just them, it's also their families that are brought into the spotlight and have to deal with campaigns and have to deal with the publicity. And so this is a very unfortunate situation. We do wish healing and our restoration to everyone who is impacted, and remind people that, domestic violence is never okay. And there are so many organizations and resources available to you, whether you are someone who's surviving assault or perpetrating assault. So we just want to keep that in mind. But, in addition to that, we also have more candidates announcing to run for seats, and we're still waiting to hear what's happening with the redistricting with here in Pennsylvania. So we do not even know, which districts will be underrepresented, overrepresented. We do not know which politicians are going to have to change districts, maybe run again. And so there is a lot going on within the world of politics. Was just to remind people, until we get these redistricting maps approved, there really is no candidate set in stone. There is no district set in stone. And so people just have to be a little bit more patient to figure out who their representatives are going to be next year.
Yeah, and continuing with the U.S. Senate, U.S. Senate candidate from Eastern Pennsylvania, Malcolm Yada, was in Pittsburgh and had an event with one PA throwing their support behind him, and so he may have not gotten as much coverage over the last few months, but clearly is continuing to stay out there, continuing to build grassroots support. So that's going to continue to be a name to watch in a growing crowded field that may even include recent reports suggest that Dr. Oz, from the television fame, is also looking at a Republican candidacy for the U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. Strangely enough.
Yeah, and it's becoming very apparent that people are running for office, one, to not only boost their personal profile but also to boost like their own economic resources. And so it's very unfortunate that we see a lot of people coming to Pennsylvania just to run for office. I know that they were talking about how Dr. Oz has not lived in Pennsylvania for a number of years, but one of the things that are very interesting with some of the Senate seats and even the congressional seats, you actually do not have to live in district to run. You just have to move to that district once you win your race. And so, again, we a couple episodes ago we talked about how over $1 billion is going to be funneling into Pennsylvania just to do the election. So we really, really need people to take their finances and their resources and support organizations that can improve people's lives now, instead of doing some of these campaigns where people are not going to win these offices. And I think it's going to be very important, again, as we look at the lobbying rules in Pennsylvania, as we look at the election rules in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania legislature is looking at lobbying right now because we do have uh, one of the most lax rules around lobbying right now in Pennsylvania. And so that's something that, the legislature is looking at changing and altering. And so it's very important. Again, I know people are tired. It's a pandemic. It's a lot going on. But we have to be mindful about these rules and laws that are coming down, because it really is impacting how we're able to engage our everyday lives. And we've seen the past few weeks how important elections are when it comes to judiciary, when it comes to having things like paid sick leave, Medicare for all. It's very important that people are paying attention to what's going on at the local and national races.
Absolutely, and also in other news, Black lawmakers in Pennsylvania, including members of the Pennsylvania Black Caucus, have reiterated a call for a state probe into the police shooting of a teen in Monroe County, Pennsylvania. Some folks have been following this. A young man, Christian Hall, died after troopers opened fire on December 30th uh, on the Route 33 South Underpass on Interstate 80 in Hamilton Township, Monroe County. Spotlight PA, in partnership with NBC News, has reported this week that a new video obtained from Hall's parents tell a story that really did not match with some of the original reports of the incident. So again, in Monroe County, that's the Pennsylvania Legislative Black Caucus, has reiterated their calls for a state probe into this incident involving Christian Hall out in Monroe County. I know this is something that you've been following, Miracle.
Christian Hall was 19 years old. He was an individual who was suffering some mental health issues, but at the time the police officer was engaging him, both his hands were up while he was on the bridge. And so this has been an ongoing struggle for like almost a year for this family to get the information, to still find out what happened. Because again, in Pennsylvania, it's very hard to get information about officer involved shootings, officer related deaths. Still here in Pittsburgh, we're still trying to figure out what happened to Jim Rogers, the man that was essentially tased to death by the local police. And it's very, very difficult to get information, to get officers' names, to get, who did what and where, the chain of command, the rules of procedures. These things really are not transparent. And you're really having to wait until which, depending on which investigation agency is taking over the case, you really have to wait for them to release reports. It can be months, weeks, years, and that's something that a lot of people have been advocating for. I know the Legislative Black Caucus did have a slew of bills, criminal justice bills, that they did pull back that would deal with some of these issues. And so, yes, this family, the Christian Hall family, has been organizing, mobilizing. They do have a rally this Saturday in Strasbourg demanding more information. And it's very unfortunate that these families cannot grieve the loss of their loved ones. They have to fight day in and day out just to get answers and hold people accountable for taking the lives of the people they love.
Absolutely. And speaking of Erica Strasberger, she has introduced legislation banning plastic bags in stores. This is a ban that you find all over the country, San Francisco and other cities, where stores no longer provide plastic bags, and we know through tons of research the environmental impacts of the proliferation of plastic bags. I believe there's going to be some hearings coming up over the course of the next few weeks. So if you're interested, contact Councilwoman Strasburger's office or contact your Pittsburgh City Council rep to see where they stand. Organizations like Giant Eagle have come out in support of this, and we'll look to share some more details about that local legislation as well. So definitely there's a lot going on here in Western PA and also around the state politically. Is there anything else we haven't mentioned, Miracle, that you want to mention for our viewers?
The last thing before we move towards our guest, we started watching the Pittsburgh Public School Board. We know last week, what happened with, Superintendent James Harris over at Woodland Hills. This week, the Pittsburgh Public School Board is going to be voting on whether or not to reinstate suspensions for nonviolent offenses. As we know, last year, they narrowly passed legislation that would prevent them from suspending youth as young as in pre-K and kindergarten. And now that legislation is back. It's going to go for public hearing is tonight. It's going to go for a vote on Wednesday. So people are also paying attention towards that because we're seeing this demand for incarceration and prosecution of teens and youth as we move back into this post-pandemic society. And again, we know, looking at those numbers today, that essentially doubled. The pandemic is still here, but now people are asking us once again to put youth in situations where we know the Schumann Juvenile Detention Center is closed. So people are now advocating for more policing of our youth, and we don't know where they'll end up because we don't have a local detention center. And we know for some of the kids, they're going to go to the ACJ because they're 15 and older. So this is just something that we're really, really paying attention to and need to be aware of. So everyone to pay it, please. Again, there's a lot happening, but on Wednesday, if you can, pay attention to the Pittsburgh Public Schools School Board vote. And so I think that will take us into having a conversation with our first guest, Dr. Sarah Leonardi. It is a brilliant researcher, faculty advisor, and teacher who was working with a group of students and community organizers to track the way policing works in this region. And they just released this really interactive new tool that allows you to look up police in your area. And we're going to have a conversation about why that's so important, because people may not realize there are over 100 police precincts just in Allegheny County alone. That means you can literally cross bridges and streets and have a different law, a different code of conduct that police officers are using. So it's very important that we understand what that means for us and to have all the tools, because knowledge is power. And so with that, we welcome Dr. Sarah Leonardi into our program.
Hi. Thank you, Miracle and Curry, for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. But just to get started, can you just talk about your organization, what you do, and how long y'all have been around?
Okay. So we are the Center for Analytical Approach for Social Innovation. Um, and we have a group called Grief to Action Initiative. And this group started after George Floyd's murder, and it's sort of it's a volunteer platform. So we start student and community projects that are online, and this is like a open virtual environment where people just come in, and we've had about 150 volunteers so far, with 1/3 of them coming from outside of Pitt. Um, so we meet every week on on Friday at noon, and then if you just email us at cassie@pitt.edu, we have a Zoom link for you to join.
And so you just launched this interactive tool. Can you talk a little bit about why you felt this project was what you wanted to focus the research and the students' work on?
Yeah. So some of our members have talked about how, just driving from their neighborhood to school, they would be passing multiple police districts. And they have also talked about, and they don't really know if they got into some situation, like which police department they're dealing with and what sort of rules. We've also talked to community organizers that basically say that, if something happened, nobody really knows how to report. So everyone's like sending people to the same person. Even people who are organizer, they would send them to, the big boss and be like, talk to her. She knows how to file. And so a lot of people's time are being spent trying to navigate this for example, misconduct complaint system, or trying to understand which police department they're dealing with. And all of this seems to be things that citizens should be able to get to, right? Like public information that they should be able to get to.
Right. And from your perspective, why do you think it's so important, to have this quantitative, analysis, about things that obviously people, experience, but may not have the data, to back up these experiences, and where sometimes people will share their lived experiences, but oftentimes will say, well, that's just anecdotal. Why is
Mhm.
it so important, to bring this analytical approach, to studying the social phenomenon?
So we don't actually record police misconduct complaint. We simply have a tool that walks citizen through it, and I can share the screen and like show you guys what that looks like. Um, and then the other thing that we built is okay. So let me just like go forward a little bit here. So on Kari's question, this is just what grief to action is. So you had another question, Miracle, about like the other thing that we do, and I can come back there. Another thing that we do is a eco business scavenger hunt. But let's go back to the policing project first for now. So if you were to file a misconduct complaint, what you would have is two places where you can file: the Office of Municipal Investigation or the Police Review Board, and they have different processes and oversight. And so you have to kind of collect this information across multiple sites. So an individual that like wants to file a complaint might see something that looks like this, right? And so this is pretty overwhelming. Um, and if you, so what we want to do is we want to break this down to something that is much simpler. So we read through some union contracts, and we basically broke it down into these particular stages. So there is an interaction with police, which after we talked to organizers, we realized that people didn't even know what constitute misconduct. So we had to explain like what their rights are at the interaction. And then if they were to file a complaint, what is the process? What are the two systems? How is their misconduct complaint reviewed? Um, and then what is the investigation like once it starts? And then when you have a result, what happens to the result? So the tool that we built allows you to, like, if you click on a bubble, it will explain to you what that stage is, and then it will give you a series of questions, which are questions that we collected from our user studies from organizers. So it will kind of expand and explain to you like what happens at that stage. So I can stop share there and then take another question maybe.
Yes, and so I know you talked a little bit about your interaction with community organizers. Can you just talk about what you've learned about policing in Allegheny County? Because again, there are so many different precincts. So
Yeah.
how does this tool help mainstream that information for the user?
Yes. So we talked very early in our like start of this project. We talked to like a very local community group, and we talked to a national one. So we talked to Take Action Mon Valley, talked to Fawn, and then we talked to Sam Singway in Campaign Zero. And it turns out that like they're talking about the same thing. One is hyper local and one is national. And so um, some of the things that they talked about is the importance of police union contracts, right? So a lot of the rules about what city or what a municipality is able to do and what's the rights of the government versus the police department is governed by these contracts. And these contracts are legal documents that are hard to read. They're public, but you have to do a right to know request in order to get them. And if you think about the fact that we have, over 100 police departments, someone that's kind of navigating their way through Allegheny County, there's no way they can read 100 contracts, right? So this is where we come in. Um, so Campaign Zero. So let me just share my screen. I'm going to talk about. So now I'm going to talk about like the two parts of the tool, which is the police contract part and the map. And I'll explain why the map is so important for some place like Allegheny County. Okay. So the police contracts have so much content and so much text that we had to go somewhere else to figure out how we should start. So Campaign Zero identifies 6 major barriers to accountability. And I'm going to talk about them in terms of the Pittsburgh contract, like how these national concepts apply locally. So, for example, disqualifying misconduct complaints talks about at the review stage what sort of complaints are going to get thrown out, right? So, for example, complaints that are filed too late or complaints that are filed anonymously might be thrown out at certain places. Other things that are problematic for accountability is that the officer might get an advance notice before they were being interviewed. And this gives them time to prepare that might not be available to other members of the public. Other things are like getting access to information that civilians do not get prior to being interrogated. And so we found that if we search for the word interrogation in the police contracts, you would be able to read terms that are associated with this particular issue. Another one is limiting disciplinary consequences. And so, for example, you will not be able to know what is happening when the investigation is going on. And to learn what different municipalities has about this, you can search for the word public statement and then compare them across the county. Another big thing is that cities are required to pay costs related to misconduct. So this, we as taxpayer, we pay the city, and then actually this money goes towards the investigation when we file a complaint. So these are some of the things that may be problematic. And then one more that I think is a pretty big thing is that past misconduct investigation may be thrown out after a period of time. So even if the investigation shows that the officer had done something wrong, the reprimand may be deleted, right? So these are things that we care about, we want to look at, but it's really very difficult to look at these provisions in like piles and piles of legal documents. So what we did was our volunteers send right to know requests to all over the city, and also people were sending us contracts, and we built a contract search tool. So in the contract search tool, you can search using the previously identified keywords that we talked about. So if I could just show my screen how that looks like. So for example, if you were looking at, we had like a keyword search here that you could click on. So for example, if you were looking at, here, you can first navigate our website by those categories that I just showed you. Let's say you click on unfair access to information, right? So this is like, what is the information that's given to the officer at the interrogation? So if you click on that, it will expand. It will tell you what kinds of words you could be looking for. And it will show you examples of the boroughs in Allegheny County that has these words. So let's say I click on interrogation, then I could see how those words look. There's 41 police departments in Allegheny County, so like about 40%, right? That has a provision regarding the police officer being informed of the nature of interrogation. If I click on this thing and you want it to go into more detail, you can actually download the entire contract from our website. So you could also search manually, and then you can just go to the search bar. But like, this may be quite overwhelming, right? Like if you're a citizen and you might just want to know in sort of like a visual form what this provisions look like. So we also have a map. And in this maps, you have these keywords. And these are just starting keywords, right? These are just the keywords that we identify, that our volunteers identify in this preliminary version to be quite informative about those potential problematic areas. So if I click on interrogation here's a map of Pittsburgh. So you can find us at grief2action.org/pound/map. And then you can see all the areas that have the word interrogation. If you click on a specific place, for example, this is not for sale, it will give you a link to the police department. It'll tell you how many police officers are there, the police budget percentages, and the keywords that are in the contract. And then you can download the contract there. So we have a lot of data. So these things we can put in other things. So for example, we can put in the full police budget or whatever organizers find most useful to them. And for that, we need your feedback. Other things that you could do here is you can search for your township, click on it, and it will tell you about your local police department. So, yep. So that's what we have, and we need to make it better. So we're open for anyone to join. We meet every Friday at noon. And you just have to email cassie@pitt.edu for the Zoom link, and then you would be able to get on the meetings. So
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I know you said you wanted to mention the people you did this project with. Did you want to take a time to mention them? And I know you told people how they can get in contact with you already.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so just email cassie@pitt.edu for us.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for helping, create and amplify this tool. This tool really helps look at your police contracts, look at the police budget. So when your city or borough or county is negotiating different contracts, you're able to advocate for what should or should not be in there. You're able to make demands, do public hearings. And if you feel that your rights have been violated, you're also able to look to these contracts to help bolster your claim for evidence that your rights were violated when you do some of these complaints. So this is a very useful tool. So thank you so much, Dr. Sarah Leonardi, for your time and all the work that you do. Have a great night.
Thank you, Carrie Miracle, for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, and so we're going to stick with the theme of criminal justice. Sometimes there's great positives that we have, like these tools, information, and education that can assist and help us. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are these new bills and pieces of legislation that actually have the intent to do good, but then create more harm and more barriers. And one such bill that came up in the this past week was House Bill 2046, that on the surface, for a lot of people, they thought that it may have looked okay, or they didn't see if there was a problem with it. But in the reality and implementation, it's going to impact the way that community bail funds and community organizations are able to use funds to help people not be stuck in jail as they wait for a trial. And to talk about this and what does it mean going forward for organizers and community, and to tell you what you can do to get involved, we have two individuals, Manny from Bucket Bail Fund and Melitza from Jailbreak and Bucket, who are going to be joining us just to talk a little bit about that. So welcome, Manny and Melitza. Thank you so much for joining the program.
Peace, peace. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so Manny, what happened this past week? Wrap it up. Tell us what's going on.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start at the beginning, just because there's this group called the American Bail Coalition, the ABC. They're based out of Lancaster, and all of these statewide bail funds gave all of this money to state house Republicans, and Republicans introduced this bill to attack community bail funds, because apparently bail bondsmen, I guess, have been feeling the pressure because community members have been coming together and bailing out their fellow community members out of jail, and bondsmen are no longer the only game in town, and I guess they're feeling the pressure. So what happened in the House was a vote that was basically along party lines, and it passed. And they're taking it up in the Senate December 13th. I think they go into session. So statewide, all of the community bail funds are trying to push to have people stand up, speak out against this, speak to the senators, try to get our lawmakers to oppose this.
And so for Lisa, for people who may not understand, why is this bill so harmful to the community?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a few reasons. One, that I think bail funds across PA and just in general nationwide who've been combating these similar bills the last year or so is that it would basically preclude folks pooling money. And the reality is, we know in Pittsburgh that the vast majority of the bails that we pay are what are called straight bails. So it's not something that you can pay just a percentage of, which is very common in Philly, for example. So a lot of our bails are 5,000 straight, 25,000 straight. That's something that obviously none of us could ever pay, right? And so the concept of pooling money, be it a family or a congregation or an affinity group, is something that people should have access to as long as the atrocity that is cash bail exists. And basically regulating it would preclude people from collectively kind of putting money together to pay bails. And keep in mind, people who are given bails by judges supposedly are done so with the assumption that they're going to be able to pay this, right? And we know in Pittsburgh that our judges ask very, very few questions, if any at all, about people's ability to pay. And so that's kind of why and how we've been kind of referred hundreds of people since we've started posting a couple of years ago.
And so for people who may not understand, Manny, can you just talk, what is bail, right? Why is it set? How is it supposed to work in Pennsylvania? And how actually does it work in Pennsylvania?
All right, so statewide and also nationwide, if you are charged with a crime, you have the presumption of innocence. That's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so being charged with a crime, being arrested, does not necessarily mean you're guilty. You're not supposed to automatically be held pre-trial, with the exception of like homicide. You know what I mean? There's like only a few charges, maybe that's the only one that there is no bail and you sit in jail until your trial. All right? If somebody is given a cash bail, this is supposed to be collateral, so that to ensure that they return to court. That's basically all it's about. And it's unconstitutional for somebody to have an unreasonable bail. You know what I'm saying? Meaning a bail that they can't afford to pay. But what actually happens is, like Melissa said, the judge doesn't ask you any questions about your finances. They don't even inquire about any amount that you're able to pay. They set a bail. They actually determine your bail before they even see you, before you even have like your arraignment. You know what I mean? And they decide what ransom they're going to give you based on how they feel. MDJs who set the bail in Allegheny County, they have a whole lot of discretion. You know what I'm saying? I say this a lot because it's important. The first time I had bail set, I had a co-defendant with the same exact charges. His bail was set at $5,000 and my bail was set at $25,000. You know what I'm saying? And there was no difference between us, you know what I mean, as far as the case that we were facing, you know what I'm saying? And it's important for me to say that I beat that case, you know what I mean? But had we not gone to a bondsman, you know what I mean, because that was the only option that was available at the time, I would have sat in jail for like 2 years. You know what I mean? So the reason bail exists, or the reason bail funds exist, is to get people out of the jail. You know what I mean? Because we know even if you spend 3 days in jail, it can have an adverse effect on your life. You can possibly lose your job. You can lose your children. You can lose your house. You know what I mean? And without even determining whether or not you're supposed to be there. You know what I mean? So for a long time, bondsman was the only option, and they charged an outrageous fee. You know what I mean? That's non-refundable. And now there are community bail funds who don't charge anything, who just want to see their people free. You know what I mean? And now we're being attacked for it.
Correct. And for some people who may not know you, may not know Bucket, may not know Jailbreak, Melissa, can you just explain what Jailbreak is, what Bucket is, and also how people can get involved in supporting your orgs?
Yeah, totally. I guess Bucket is the bail fund. It's a bail fund that posts bail for poor and indigent folks and people who just kind of find out about us generally, I feel, online or through their public defender or through word of mouth. So anyone who has a bail and is sitting on up to $25,000, we will post for. We don't charge discriminate. And Jailbreak kind of is something that Manny, I think, can speak probably even more to. He's really kind of a couple folks started Jailbreak kind of noticing that there's a real lack of, I mean, there's no connectivity. When someone gets out of jail, they have nothing. Like in theory, they're given bus passes. In theory, they're given their clothes back. In theory, you get your property back. And Jailbreak was kind of born of that need when folks are coming out of the jail, you know, at a different season than when they went in. They're coming out in the dead of winter and they have nothing, or they're from out of state. They don't have a way to get home. And so Jailbreak is kind of the aftercare piece. And we can drop the link to both Bucket and Jailbreak in the chat. But Jailbreak is kind of this aftercare kind of collective, and both are collectives and aspire to be horizontal organizations and are all volunteer driven. So if folks are interested, I'll maybe post the links in the chat. And Jailbreak kind of focuses a lot on commissary letter writing. If someone's going to a halfway house or needs some sort of housing support when they get out, we frequently get those asks from public defenders or from people directly. So people who are excited about this kind of piece of it, it would be wonderful to get involved. And then the bail fund itself has kind of been a small crew for years now, but Manny and I will be doing a training in December, most likely, with an organization who's asking for folks who want to learn how to post bail. And we have a document that we're willing to share with anyone. If anyone's interested in posting bail, we'd love to have people help us do it. There's a few of us who kind of bottom line that. And Manny, what am I missing? Tell me more.
It's important for me to say how Bucket came into existence. Bucket
that was
is
my
somebody's
next question. I was trying to roll that in there because people are talking about the bail fund bill, and people having to get a brick and mortar business in order to be able to bail people out, having to pay all these registration and licenses fees to basically keep bail as a business. But we know that really has precluded a lot of people from getting free and causes a lot of issues. So can you talk about, the people you've helped and how not being able to come home while you're waiting for a trial can impact someone's life?
Right. Well, it can literally lead to the end of somebody's life. Bucket is somebody's name. His name is Frank Smart Jr. They call him Bucket. That was his nickname. and he was being held pre-trial in the ACJ, and he wasn't given his medication because the healthcare at the jail is atrocious, and he had a seizure, right? And instead of like actually helping him, they put him in handcuffs and they put him on his stomach, and several guards stood on his back until he died. See what I'm saying? So Bucket as a bail fund is in existence to potentially prevent that from happening to anybody else, because people will literally die at the jail. You know what I'm saying? Literally. And the ACJ has a higher than normal, higher than the national average death rate. You know what I'm saying? Some people say higher than Rikers Island per capita. You know what I mean? So the people who are involved in Bucket are not involved for the profit, the way that the bondsman industry is. You know what I mean? And you know, me and myself, like I have a personal attachment to it. Before I was a part of Bucket, I was bailing people out, you know what I mean, family and friends. And me myself, I've been bailed out of the ACJ 4 times now. You know what I'm saying? And it's important to say I haven't been convicted. You know what I'm saying? I was acquitted of all of those charges. You know what I mean? And I say that because I know we are talking about bail now. The bigger question, the bigger issue is pre-trial detention, period. You know what I mean? And I know we was going to bring this up later, but we're kind of on it because the whole criminal justice system as a whole, you know, it's born out of white supremacy, and it's a heavy slant towards people who look like you and me. In Allegheny County, Black people make up 13% of the population, but we make up 65% of the jail. You know what I mean? So anything that's aimed at, or anything that will prevent people or cripple people, put any hurdles on people who are trying to help the incarcerated people who are predominantly poor, predominantly Black. I mean, I think we have to oppose that just on principle.
Facts. And I know I'm the Abolitionist Law Center did some research, and not only were people, you know, overwhelmingly Black in the jail, the people overwhelmingly also had, you know, mental health disorders which aren't being treated. We do know that, you know, trans women have traditionally been put in jail on a male pod, have been subject to solitary confinement. We know people have been forced to give, you know, birth in the jail and be separated from, you know, the children. We also know that, like you were saying earlier, people go to these jails and they can't get access to the medical care, the maintenance medication that they were on prior, you know, to their incarceration now, except, you know, until they literally deteriorate, you know, and disassociate in the jail. And so it's very important that people are able to come together and bail people out. And back to you, Melissa, because I think people sometimes don't really understand the community aspect of bailing people out. But like you said, even if it's a church group that decides once a month we're going to bail a person out, they are now under this bill considered a bail bond organization, and they have to register. So people can't even just do a quote unquote pay it forward good act and bail people out of the jail. So you can just talk a little bit more about the specifics of this bill and how harmful it is.
Yeah, I think I dropped the link to the bill itself in the chat if people are interested to read it. And it's something that I think there's a few main points. One is like, you know, for context, Miracle, whenever Manny and I or anyone in bail fund is posted outside of the county, the amount of resistance we encounter to them to court clerks not knowing how to process a bail from an individual, right? Oh no, I don't know how to do that. We've only ever done it with bondsmen. I mean, what's the number of times, Manny, like in the last half year for non-Pittsburgh bail? And I'm talking even magistrates in Allegheny County, right? I mean, it's shameful, like shameful. Like they don't know how to process a bail. They don't know how to do surety that's not in the person's, like very basic things, right? And so there's this kind of public education piece where like I would really love us to kind of, I'm excited for this thing in December so we can talk a little bit about what bailing actually looks like for folks and what it actually precludes. And it's a sort of thing where I think we've actually been asked, and Manny, you can speak to it maybe more recently, when we've been told that we actually have to register as bail agents, which is not accurate as it currently stands. So I don't know if you want to pipe in with that, Manny, but I think all of us, the three of us who kind of post high volumes monthly have been told this verbally, and then it's been inevitably dropped the next time that we go post the next bail. But maybe mention that, Manny, and then we can cut back to this a little bit more.
Oh, okay. I will mention this. So I know it happened to Milita and some other people in the Bell Fund during the uprisings, right? And this is really where our resistance is coming from, because they arrested so many people, and then like so many community members came together and started bailing these people out. You know what I'm saying? And they really didn't like that for whatever reason. Because like a lot of people who got arrested here in Pittsburgh got bailed out by bucket. You know what I mean? And I know, like I said, Milita and some other people had some resistance. I had some resistance recently. I went down there to pay a bail at the magistrate in city court, and they said, "Oh, I paid too many, so I can't pay anymore. I have to register as a bondsman." I started asking them questions. Okay, how many can I pay? They didn't know. It's like, all right, what's the time frame? They're like, oh, I don't know. So eventually, I just ignored them, and it was all right. But this law is saying that you can only post 3 within 30 days. So I'm saying three within 30 days, and even if it's like a family who collectively raised the bail and they have more than 3 members of their family in jail, they have to register as a bondsman, and they have to obtain a license. They have to pay a fee. They have to pass a criminal background check. Have to pass a credit background check. You have to have a brick and mortar location in the county. So, like we said, we pay out of county bails all the time. You know what I'm saying? If we have 3 in another county, we won't be able to do it unless we have a physical location in that county. You know what I mean? And like right now, other than them, not liking what we do, or their pockets maybe being affected, it's not really addressing any problem that exists. You know what I mean? I don't understand why it's a problem to free people from the jail. Why it's a problem so long as we're paying the money. Bondsmen don't even pay the money. You know what I mean? They don't even pay cash like we do. You know what I'm saying? But and especially if you think about the fact that they shouldn't be held pre-trial in the first place. They should be presumed innocent. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And I think what Manny was saying just now, it just kind of lays bare like what the purpose of this stuff is. I mean, at the end of the day, I didn't appreciate this until more recently when we had to have a conversation with the bail bondsman, the negotiation that a family does in order to kind of come to an agreement verbally. Bail bondsmen basically force families to sign contracts to sign over huge amounts of property and cash. So there's a fee up front that the family loses, combined with collateral that's legally held, that legally the bondsman has access to for the entire duration of someone's case, right? So we were working with someone recently who 2 houses were going to be put up in addition to like a $12,000+ fee. So they're losing $12,000. Both of their houses are basically under contract with this bondsman in the middle of nowhere in central PA. They're not even from there. It's just like where the alleged offense was. And I'm just thinking about that is like, this is why like these bonds agencies are probably losing in many ways. And there's also a political thing, because the horizon is that bail is like not going to exist in our lifetime, and hopefully far sooner if we have anything to do with it. And it's just like paying cash, right, for someone's freedom. Like what is that, right? How can you justify that?
I like how you called it a ransom, but I think again, people do not understand when we talk about incarceration as an industry, it really starts the moment that, even before, but really the moment the arrest happens. And what Melissa's talking about is, I've been through this situation with loved ones before. When you go to bail someone out, if you do not have the cash on hand to pay the fee, you have to sign over to the bail bonds agency whatever collateral that you own. It could be a car, it could be a house, sometimes it could be jewelry, like whatever property that you own, which is supposed to be used in case something happens. That something happens means, let's say you're late to work and you get violated by the judge. You show up, 30 minutes at 8:30, not 8 o'clock. They put you in jail. That means your family has then forfeited the right to that money. So you haven't even been convicted yet. But because you're put in the clinker just for being late, your family can lose house, your car, the only collateral that they have. And when you think about, the racial wealth gap in this country, This is how a lot of these bondsmen are able to prey on the poorest of individuals. And think about people who are in the survival economy or people who are undocumented. They really can't do anything to get that property back unless they buy it at an astronomical rate back from the Bell's bondsmen. So there is a whole side industry that goes into really purchasing someone's freedom, which is why a lot of us still refer to incarceration like as enslavement, because you are literally paying for people's freedom, putting everything you own to get the freedom back. And then if somebody just says, you know what, I'm tired of this, I'm just going to plead guilty, then you still have to pay money and fees to talk to them, to send them food, to make sure they have pen and paper, to do complaints, to get to see the doctor, all types of things. So it's this never-ending cycle. And here these community organizations are coming in and saying, you know what, we're going to help people, we're in a global pandemic, not lose their homes, not lose their cars. And the Pennsylvania legislature sees that as a threat. So what are some of the things that people can do to help you all mobilize and try to get the Senate and the governor to take a negative approach to this bill?
Yeah.
I think.
No, you go ahead.
I think Melissa is going to drop some links in the chat. I'll start off by saying, go to bucketbailfund.org, go to jailbreakpgh.org, check out what we do. Jailbreak is like a mutual aid organization that anybody can plug into. Anybody concerned about incarcerated folks in the ACJ and nationwide, you can plug into them. And you can actually help, and a little bit goes a long way. Check out ALC's Court Watch program, and also there is a sign-on letter that the Pennsylvania Bail Funds came up with in order to send to these senators to oppose it. Like I said, it already passed in the House along party lines, and it's going to the senators next month on the 13th. And reach out to your senators, reach out to Fetterman, reach out to Wolf. Y'all elected these people. They work for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like just if people want to observe this stuff, joining Court Watch to actually see what some of these bail hearings are like. I mean, a lot of us are sensitized to this stuff already, but it's like a different thing to kind of sit in a courtroom and have a judge spend 30 to 60 seconds on every individual, right? And like, you have people pleading on the line, explaining their individual circumstances. They're cut off, especially if they have public defenders. They get a little bit more attention if they have private lawyers. And so the monetization of this stuff is just, it's egregious in just the way you explain that, Miracle, especially the bonds industry and how it works. It's something that people also believe that it's the only thing that's possible, it's the only way to get out, right? So there's kind of this host of issues where like we want to kind of relieve the financial burden. There's no contract, there's no nothing. If you request it from us, we will post the end. And that's like what we must do now as long as bail exists. And if people are excited about this in any capacity, if you want to start your own jail support crew, if you want to post a bail, if you want to learn how to do it, I dropped Manny's and my emails in the chat. People are so welcome. And yeah, we have websites and social media and stuff. So please get in touch with Miracle and you can connect to us, and we'd love to talk more.
Kari, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to note, and thanks for joining. I'm glad to be back. I saw the Governor Wolf did say that he was opposing his bill and will not sign it. But I think when people hear that, sometimes people kind of relax, right?
Right.
They say, oh well, this, So can you, if you haven't already, kind of stress the importance of regardless, of what Governor Wolf said he'll do if it does pass the Senate and makes it to his desk, if he is going to veto it. Why is it still important to keep the pressure on, regardless of what the outcome in the state Senate is going to be?
Yeah, I'm curious what you think, Manny, but my initial gut feeling, Kari, is that first they can amend it, right? And they can do anything under the sun to make this palatable, especially given how this kind of shook out with the House. It was, I think, 111 to 88, right? So this stuff is like, sounds good enough to enough people, right? And so if they're kind of going to adjust certain kind of piecemeal pieces of this, I'm not confident that Wolf or Fetterman are, I mean, there's all these political reasons as to why he might oppose the bill, and I'm curious about it, right? Because there's all these other states where we've kind of seen a similar trend where Dems kind of will reject something to regulate community bail funds. But it would be really great if people who have connections and are interested in legislative organizing, like, keep up the pressure and contact their senators. And we have this beautiful letter that the Pennsylvania Bail Fund Network put together that's in the chat. And if you have trouble accessing it, we can post it on our sites too after. But the position of Fetterman, my understanding, it was kind of very, very kind of middle of the way language, right? That it was like in its current form. And I think Wolf framed it like that. In its current form, I would veto it, right? So there's kind of two stages that we need to kind of see out before we can kind of rest a little bit. And I think one is Senate session mid-December, so folks can be aggressive about that. And if you're uncertain what that means, it's really like, reach out to any of us here, and we'd love to talk more about it and organize kind of letter writing or call-in parties, something like this. And then separately kind of really advocate that modifications to this would, like, it's a problem that doesn't exist, right? Like, there is no problem. The problem is cash bail. It will go away. Like, we know this, and it's going to happen. So, I mean, the time is coming. What do you think, Manny?
I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree.
Well, I do thank you both so much, like, for joining us and taking the time out to talk about this bill, and also the amazing work that you all are doing. And so, again, if you look at the chat, you can figure out how to support these organizations, how to show up, how to volunteer for these organizations, because they're doing a lot of work. And not to do like a spoiler alert, but there is going to be an article coming out, I believe, sometime next week, talking about some of the cases of the people at the Allegheny County Jail who have not been bailed out, and for various reasons, and who are probably more than likely actually innocent of the crimes that they have been accused of, and have been down for months and some even years. So I think it's very imperative that people, again, I know it's so much happening in the world, people pay attention to what's going on at these local prisons and jails, because any of us at any given moment could actually find ourselves incarcerated. And like Manny said, he was acquitted of his charges. He didn't do the stuff that they said he did, and he still had to go to these processes. And so when we're thinking about racial justice issues, it's very important that we understand that we should not be putting a price on people's freedom, and we should really be trying to do everything we can to help people get the support and resources that they need, so that they don't have to survive and do things that possibly could have them end up in incarceration. So with that, Manny and Melita, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a great evening.
Oh, hold on, before we go, I gotta show off my hoodie. I don't know if y'all can see it.
I see it. And Manny, I will say, we do need you to come back to do another not gun demonstration, but a gun safety demonstration. We've seen a lot of stuff that's happened in the past week. So we know a lot of people don't know how to store their guns properly, all types of things. So we are going to have you come back on to talk, in the next few weeks, to talk about like gun safety and how people are able, to make sure that they keep themselves safe as they arm themselves for whatever reason.
Oh, I look forward to it. That's my bread and butter.
Of course. All right, thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's happening, but hopefully there's something that spoke to you and resonated to you this evening and motivated you to get involved, because bills are coming every day, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this a lot, going on politically as we go into the holiday season. We can, anticipate, more announcements. There was an article in the Pittsburgh Courier about two candidates, Letitia Washington and Ariane Abney. Ariane Abney has been on the show before. They will be seeking the seats that will be vacated by State Representative Jake Wheatley and State Representative Ed Gainey, respectively. And I'm sure there'll be more announcements, particularly in those two districts, as we discover what the lines will be when the lines finally get drawn, which we expect sometime in January. So it's just a very, very interesting time, so as we all relax during this holiday period, as we prepare for 2022, we can rest assured that there will be a lot of political news over the next 6 weeks to keep us busy, as we rest up and recover and get ready for another what by all accounts appears to be a very intense and active political season coming up.
Yes, and we'll post it, on our social media sites. If you're running for office, we have 2 shows. We have a Sunday night sit down, and we have our candidate forums, our candidate forum series. Depending on if we get the redistricting in time for the special elections, we'll actually start in February, because we have special elections that may be held in March. So we're going to be once again doing our candidate forums, doing our candidate scorecards. So if you like the work that we do, you support the work that we do, please make sure you're donating to our organization. We are a 501c4, so we do depend on your financial support to do the work and to bring you the programming and do the research and everything. So please make sure you are, if you're able to, share our Act Blue link, donate if you can, even if it's just, $3 a month, $5 a month, whatever you're able to, donate, please do. And also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of great programming and content that will be dropping at the first of the year. So we're doing a lot of work and research now. So we have some really cool things in the works for you all at the beginning of the year. So please make sure you're liking our content, sharing, and donating when you can.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say before Miracle gives a quick rundown of if there's anything else happening this week. I don't know what the programming schedule with the holiday later this week. But we do have One Hood Power merch that will be available starting this Friday. So go check out the website. We have hoodies, we have crews. We have some cool stuff, very much like the very smooth hoodie that Brother Manny had on tonight. You can get your own starting this Friday when you go on our site. We're setting that up this week. So that's my announcement.
Yeah, it's a surprise announcement for Small Business Saturday. But yes, like you said, it is the fall holiday this week. So we will have This Week in White Supremacy on Wednesday for One Head Media Network. A lot of the other programming is going to be repeats. However, if you saw the Allegheny County Health Department statistics today, over 2,000 cases of COVID-19 has popped up within the past 24 hours. So again, please be mindful, wash your hands, wear your face mask, do social distancing. I know a lot of us are traveling or hanging out with friends. Please still, even if you're boosted, even if you're vaxxed up, please still practice, the CDC guidelines. As we said on Ask a Black Doctor, vaccines just help improve your ability to fight COVID-19. It does not prevent you from catching or spreading COVID-19. So please be safe, stay healthy, and we will see you back next week. We have a really great special program for you all, talking about, World AIDS Day and what that means for the communities. We have some really great organizers coming in. So we'll see you next Monday.
Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your holiday break. See you next Monday.